Welcome to Not What I Thought. I'm Erika.
I'm Yolanda.
And I'm Becca. We're therapists, entrepreneurs, and perfectly imperfect humans.
We first met during a business owner retreat where we became fast friends because we're not afraid to be real and ask the hard questions about life. What we thought it would be like, how messy it actually is, and the courage it takes to create the life we want.
We continue to build our friendship and personal growth through our own retreats. We find the deepest connection in sharing our struggles and finding what we have in common rather than what divides us.
We're breaking down hard topics on our podcast and together have conversations about what it takes to find real talk, real support, and real rest for professional women. We're glad you're here. Join us on your favorite podcast platform.
So I was thinking about what to talk about today, and I was thinking back to long-term goals because we've been sort of thinking about that for next year in terms of business and personal. But I started thinking about how does that work inside of relationships. So this has actually been a source of conflict in my marriage. So why not bring it here?
Because this is what we do. Yeah.
This is a great place.
Yeah.
No, my husband and I feel like our brains are very similar. We do operate in a very similar way. And then the ways that we're different are always surprising and glaring.
And very, very different.
And very, very different. Yeah. So I'm definitely the let's look 5 years into the future, or there's some journal prompt about, if money was no object, what vacation would you go on, or those kinds of things. My husband will just shut down. He just won't answer the question. It's very overwhelming for him, and that was definitely not what I thought it would be, because I think moving into married life, I really just had we were high school sweethearts. So I had high school, college, and then the beginning of a work experience. And I give you this background to say that since we both were high achievers and got good grades and things kind of fell in place, right? Achievement-based things, I feel like I thought, oh, we're the same. And then when I'm looking, years down the road into where do we want to go next, or we're going to move houses, or what are we going to do? And that's when I learned, oh, this is not the same.
My wheels are turning so much. Yeah, I don't want to interrupt you though. So
No, you're good. Yeah, I definitely saw it most prevalent when we decided we were going to move. Because our other house was just getting a little small, and yeah. Anyway, so in that process, I started looking a year in advance, figuring out what we want to do. And it felt like a very difficult process by the time we were done with it. I felt like I was pulling, but I don't want to be pulling. Let's get moving, let's keep going. That kind of a thing. So I think just over the years of our marriage, I've had to kind of look at how I'm approaching these conversations and how we could do that a little bit differently. But I think I realized some of this when actually my daughter was tested for GT, and she came home with this chart, and it talked about a high achiever versus a gifted brain versus a creative thinker. And I'd have to pull it up to look at it again, but it clicked in my brain, and I was finally like, oh, okay, I get it. Because my brain works is the gifted thinker, in which you can kind of look at things from many different perspectives and plan ahead, and kind of your critical thinking skills just kind of come from a different direction than most people's. Whereas a high achiever, they can master techniques very well. They can master a subject matter, take the test on it, but then they're kind of done with it. Okay, I took the test, I got an A, that's it. I no longer need this information. They don't really integrate things as in the same way. And so I think that finally clicked, oh, we both got A's. So, I'm thinking we're the same, but no, because after he's done with it. He's just done with it.
Hmm.
How interesting.
Yeah. I was like,
It did.
cool.
Would Bill say the same thing about what you just said? Like, as far as gifted versus a high achiever,
Yeah.
would he say that he's a high achiever brain, and you're a gifted? Like he would,
Mhm.
the two of you are kind of on the same page with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what? It's so interesting because what is coming to mind? A couple of different things. Um, One, we've talked before about over functioning, under functioning, right? And how we are so much we fall into the three of us fall into, generally speaking, the over functioning category. Yay us.
Into this category, Yolanda.
Do what?
I said, who are you looping in here? Okay, it's me.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure I wasn't speaking out of turn.
No, I'm
But
joking.
interestingly enough, there are areas of my life and relationships that I am more of an under functioner.
Mhm.
Like I am so much of an over functioner, except in some areas of my relationship with my husband, and then I will under function.
Mm.
So that's coming to mind for me. So that's what's really interesting about kind of the gifted and the high achiever brain, because I too have a gifted brain. So I'm kind of processing that. Um, and then also just developmentally, um, not just the high achieving in like school, but developmentally, there's so much of the track that we all know that we're following, right? There's not a lot of thought that goes into you finish high school, you go to college. I mean, for a lot of us, it's just kind of
Yeah.
like what you do. Whereas some of these later in life kind of developmental decisions that have to happen that maybe aren't as cut or dry,
Yes.
and then have additional factors in, right? Now you're married and have kids, and things are getting squished and tight in the house. And is this the right house to buy? And is it the right financial decision? Like all of it just becomes a little bit more complex, at least from what I'm telling myself.
No, I think that's exactly how he sees it. Probably wouldn't describe it exactly that way, but I think that's spot on.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So how has this, like, how did that understanding of you approaching the way your brains work and approaching goals and stuff, like, how did that shift things for your relationship?
Well, this is actually what we talked about yesterday as I was
Cool.
going through this with him and just getting some ideas. Um, I think I've changed a lot in my approach, and that I know I can't come with like a grid and say like, what should we do in 5 years? Like that's not going to work. I
Mhm.
know that asking if money was no object, where would you go on vacation and what would that look like? That's not fun for him, where I'm like, where would you go?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
like then it just makes it not fun, right, for both of us. And I don't want to pressure him,
Mhm.
So I've kind of I've figured out how to, I think, just come from a different angle. If I'm thinking through something, I'll present that and some information about it, and then I'll kind of ask like, okay, what do you think about that, or what should we continue to research? And that's a little easier for him to like have a frame around something.
Mhm.
Um,
I don't, yeah, this is such a fascinating, I'm loving this conversation because I'm even thinking the different experience for each of you with the question of like, if money were no option, and the meaning that you're giving what, as opposed to what I could make up the meaning that he gives that question, right? Because you're like, oh, the sky's the limit. And I don't know, maybe a part of me would be like, if money were no object, where is this money coming from then? Like, what do we have to do to make the money for the money to not be an object? You know what I'm saying?
What has happened in our life that brought us to this point? The money's
That,
not.
yeah, how do we
that's
get here?
I'm like, I would overcomplicate it like that. Wait, how did money not become an option? Did we win the lottery? Did we have an inheritance? We get a different job?
I think what he hears is something similar to that, but if, I say, I don't know where, Paris, right? Then his mind starts to go to, okay, well, how are we going to afford that? What year are
Right,
we going to do it? When is it going to happen? Like down the line of all the,
right,
um,
right,
and
right.
that's,
And then it kind of tightens for him, where
yep,
for you it becomes a kind of a more open and broad and kind of dreaming kind of thing.
exactly.
Yeah, that's that's really fascinating. And now I'm thinking about similar situations in my marriage and how that plays out.
Is it
Where
a similar dynamic?
I think that I probably am more like Bill and Shaman's more like you, but we knew that already. We've spent enough time around the two of you to kind of know that that's
It's true.
I think this life goals thing is so nuanced and complicated when it's just between you and you, that adding other people into the mix could get a little dicey.
Yeah. Yeah. Because again, I don't want to, you know, you must sit down and talk about this and be excited about it. But I also don't think it's fair to just not engage in any kind of conversation about it either.
So over time, you are practicing more of like a containing boundary of like, let's put a different kind of structure around it that helps him to digest it a little bit differently.
Yep.
And over time, he has what I make up, what I'm guessing, as the two of you have navigated through these conversations, is that he's found his own way to be a little bit more open in having them to begin with,
Yeah, I
or
think he,
maybe a little more flexibility or playfulness.
yeah, I think it's that, but even in a less structured, like, let's sit down and talk about this question,
Uh-huh.
and more he'll just kind of bring up a topic randomly, like, um, so we're dreaming of our 40th birthdays at Disney World.
Awesome.
Y'all can come.
Awesome.
Um, anyway, but that was something that we were able to think, okay, like what, and in somewhat of a realistic context, right? Like if we could
Mhm.
pay for, family members to come with us, what would that look like? How could we
Mhm.
make that happen? Where would
Mhm.
we stay? And those kinds of questions that we could
Mhm.
play around with. And that's just a random conversation on a Tuesday, right? It's not so like, okay, let's sit down and talk about our 5-year plan.
We need to map it out. We need to
Map it
put it
out.
in ink. There's no editing.
Uh, but I learned as we were chatting about this last night that he has a worry that I've just kind of given up, maybe, or just don't engage, I guess, like that. Oh, now I just don't ask him those questions,
Mhm.
which I guess is fair because I don't. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, so that turned into an interesting conversation. So I was like, oh, I thought we were in agreement, but I think we're not in agreement
Mhm.
about how the process has, evolved
Mhm.
um, over time. So, I said, well, I don't have a problem with like you not engaging in the way that maybe I used to want you to. I've done some work around that. Um, and there's, yeah, I think a little bit of grief in that, right? Like sometimes you want to do things with
Mhm.
your partner in the way that you envision it, and if it doesn't
Mhm.
play out that way, it's kind of sad. Um, but I would rather work through that and figure out how to engage in a way that makes sense and works for both of us.
Right.
Whereas I think that was kind of putting him in a little bit of a maybe a shame spiral, or sometimes he feels like he's letting me down if he can't do something that I'm asking him to do.
Mhm.
So I thought that was an interesting perspective. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Where my brain is going with this is because I've been kind of noodling around on what does it look like to really embrace strengths in this kind of a situation in a
Mm-hmm.
way that doesn't perpetuate an overfunctioner,
Yeah.
underfunctioner role, right? Because maybe
Mm-hmm.
there's a way to say, like, oh, well, Erika, you're just good at the planning, so that's just your job in the relationship, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Um, and maybe that doesn't feel great if it starts to feel like a burden, or I'm the only one who's caring about, or I'm the only one who's planning for the future. And maybe then your partner starts to feel like their voice doesn't matter and, whatever. But also not expecting that the partner is going to become someone that they are not.
Right.
Right. And then I thought about what you said about the different types of, like the high achiever versus the creative thinker kind of way. And it's like, well, maybe no, maybe you just lean into that strength in a different way. That's like, Erica's going to be the person who thinks about it 40 different ways and how to optimize what the thing is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. And that doesn't mean that your husband has no place there.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Right. So like, yes, should he know what's going on? Should he be part of those conversations? Absolutely. And can we lean into his strengths in a way that says, cool, here's the thing that I need you to learn. Here's the thing that, like in that analogy of like, they'll like master the material and take the test and do it excellently.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Cool. So let's like find a way that uses the strength that's already there to say, can you execute on this thing? Or can you be the one who researches this part of it? Or, whatever, where you both get to contribute, but contribute in a way that works really well for your strengths and isn't like, well, my way is better. And so you're just gonna
Mm-hmm.
have to come along with me. Come along with me or like
Yeah.
get out and let me do it,
Right.
which I don't think is what you're saying, but yeah.
Yeah, I love how you put words around that because I think that is sort of what we fall into naturally. I do more
Yeah.
and then it's like, okay, you do these pieces. But yeah, having that language around it is super helpful. Like these are just naturally what we do. And as long as
Yeah.
everybody's okay with it, it's
Yeah.
hey, it's good.
Well, yeah, I'm thinking like the difference between like the big picture creative piece and like the more detail oriented pieces, right? And how conceptually a lot of the like master planning and visioning starts with you and Bill. I mean, you're a detailed person, you both are, but maybe he finds more um comfort in like the structure of some of those researching some of those details and putting the achiever brain, like Becca was saying, into practice. And then how is it different for the two of you around goals that are more important to each of you? So if there's a big goal that impacts both of you, but is a little more important to him, are the dynamics different?
I think that's a great question. I think that's where we still have some work to do in that
Hmm.
he has truly a really hard time thinking of goals.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm thinking that this is a way where you could complement each other really well as long as you both value what the other person brings.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So like one of my dear friends here um will talk about their like her and her husband's different like career choices and whatever, and she's like, I'm just honestly like not that ambitious. He's way more ambitious in his career than I am. My friend has a job that she could do like pretty much anywhere. Like it doesn't, anywhere in the United States she goes, she could find a job. It's not like it's real specific, location specific. And so they've kind of she's just okay with, we follow him in terms of career stuff. And like that's fine because she values that what his ambition brings to them and their family in terms of like opportunity and financial opportunity, whatever. And like that's just fine. And I think there's other complementary ways that he values what she brings. Um, and that he recognizes that like not that she's subservient because she definitely is not in their relationship, but just in this way, like, oh, I see how that's a strength. that you support me in this way. Awesome. And he supports her in other ways. Do you know what I mean? Like, so like, there's something about like, if you're really good at the goal setting and your partner can see how, or maybe it's not goal setting, but it's, well, I mean, yeah, it is goal setting and also the future thinking and whatever. Like if that's a strength, you don't have to make your partner the same as you, but it works if they can appreciate what that ability in you brings to the family as a whole.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
In the same way, if you can appreciate what some of his unique strengths bring to the family, then it doesn't matter if you're not the same.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah.
I think for me, I am sensing kind of also a distinction between, and I could be way off on this, but the distinction between goals and like visioning,
Mm,
if
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah, that's what I was, yeah, when you said goals, but not really. But yes, I was thinking something similar, right? Like,
Yeah,
yeah, I think that ties into that linear description you were talking about earlier. Like, okay, now, graduated high school, graduated college,
right,
job. Now
right.
he's the boss at his job. So what do you do? What's the next thing? And that's chapter.
Yeah, yeah. And so much of his life continues to be that linear thing,
Yeah.
right? Like this is the SOP and this is the way things are done. And like there's not a lot of thinking out, an opportunity to even practice thinking outside of that structure in those boxes, which also now has me thinking of it, the not just goal setting and life goals, but like visioning in life together. So what's the next part of the conversation? Is it too, and I'm being too nosy to ask, like, what is next for the conversation between the two of you to continue to work through this?
I'll probably say we need to call Becca. She's got some ideas.
I
Uh,
know a really great person that can
yeah.
help us.
No, I think I'm not sure. I'm not sure exactly where, but I hope it'll be with curiosity and figuring out how can we each use those strengths. Um, and yeah, how do I know? I think that's my struggle on my side of it is like, how do I know then what you want, uh, or what direction you want to go, or what's important to you, right?
mhm.
Um, but also, I guess there's that idea of like, well, if I asked you and you didn't tell me, then you're mad about it, then like that's on you, right? So and try to practice that.
What I what I what I would say that I know about the two of you is that there is such a foundation of curiosity and respect and appreciation that the two of you will bring that into the conversation, as uncomfortable and difficult as it might be,
Yeah.
in the middle of it, that those things will get you to the other side, whatever that looks like, in whatever the time frame that looks like. Might be
Yeah.
something that the two of you practice for the rest of your lives together.
And that if it
What
is
is
something
your
you practice for the rest of your life, maybe there's opportunity for there to be even a little bit of humor around it too. Right? It's
Oh,
just like, oh, here we are again with those two things. Like, oh, I did the thing. No. Yeah.
that does sound like something we would do.
Mhm.
Mhm.
What does your heart know to be true, Erika?
My heart knows that it's good to have different approaches to things than the person you're in a relationship with, and I think it does allow for growth and intimacy and vulnerability as we're trying to figure it out.
Yeah. How about you, Becca? What does your heart know to be true?
I'm being pulled not in the direction of the goal setting, but more in the relationship side. Like my heart knows that this is what it looks like to have a successful long-term relationship, is that you're willing to do these things like Erica and Bill are doing,
Mhm.
where you go, oh, I see now that we're different. I can go back and revise. And we're going to talk about it. Oh, you thought it that way? Okay, well, we need to I didn't realize that you had that worry or that, whatever. And that openness and curiosity and willing to change and see things with humor and everything. Like that's so inspiring. Thank you for sharing with us.
Mhm.
What does your heart know, Yolanda?
Yeah, I was thinking something similar, Becca, and I'm also thinking of my appreciation of when my partner and I do see things differently as far as goals. Um, and the the beauty of the opportunity to expand the way that I see things, that I can get so boxed in and rigid in the way that I see things. And these types of conversations between my partner and myself really help me to see the world in different ways, even though we've been together for so long and we kind of can finish each other's sentences. There's still ways that we can surprise each other. And I have an appreciation for that too.
We are so excited to announce our upcoming live event. Join us online on January 19th, 2025, where we'll guide you through the sometimes shame and guilt-ridden experience of setting goals for the year. We'll have real talk about how goal setting can lead to burnout and real support for visioning a 2025 that includes real rest, connection, and play. Go to notwhatithought.com to register. We hope to see you there.